Sicily, Italy, home of the most notorious mafia groups. Lorenzo, one of the leaders of these groups, drives up to an isolated winery only to see total devastation. He straps up and walks inside only to see even more bodies scattered around before he finally reaches the basement, where his men are holding Robert at gunpoint. Even in this situation, Robert acts calm and collected, telling Lorenzo he's here to take back something that doesn't belong to him. Impressed that Robert tracked him down, he notes that this is where Robert meets his end. But Robert turns the tables around, saying that Lorenzo has 9 seconds to decide his fate. With a stalemate and 9 seconds passed, Robert grabs the closest goon's weapon and decimates the rest. He then finishes Lorenzo shortly after and takes what he ultimately came for, a bunch of keys. Outside he tells Lorenzo's kid to stay put, but Robert is shot shortly after. He still doesn't bring himself to kill the little man. Robert then contemplates removing himself, but his mission is not yet done. On his way back, Robert eventually passes out and is found in critical condition by the local police officer. He is brought to the nearest doctor in Altamont and is patched up. Robert is lucky it was only .22 caliber. The doctor, Enzo, wonders if the officer saved a good or a bad man. Robert doesn't know. He tries to get up, but he needs rest for his wound to heal. Over the next few days Robert gets the rest he needs and is able to walk again. His wound is healing nicely, but he still needs time. He goes for a walk outside but feels out of place in this small town. Worried about cameras and the police, he finds it difficult to relax. Settling down in a cafe, Gio, the officer who had saved him, introduces his daughter to him. He praises Dr. Enzo for being a renowned person throughout their city. Then, Gio hands back Robert his car keys, noting that he is someone who doesn't poke his nose where it doesn't belong. Later, Robert contacts the CIA's financial operations groups, which monitors suspicious money flows. He reports that Lorenzo's vineyard in Sicily imported 55 crates of wine from Syria, questioning why a vineyard would need to import wine. He hangs up before they have a chance to trace his location. Over the following days, Robert becomes more familiar with the townspeople and observes a biker gang collecting money from several businesses under the guise of protection money. However, he chooses not to interfere. The next day, as he walks by the biker gang again, he witnesses the owner of a fish stand unable to make a regular payment and hears the sounds of a gang leader, Marco, assaulting the owner. The gang members notice Robert, who responds with a menacing stare as they drive away. In Naples, Italy, Marco arrives to meet his brother, Vincent. Meanwhile, Vincent, who is the leader of the Camorra Mafia, is aggressively forcing people to sign waivers for eviction. Those who refuse are threatened with death. Marco is Vincent's right hand. That evening, while Enzo and Robert are enjoying each other's company, Robert expresses his desire to cook fish for Enzo. The next day, he visits the fish stand, but the owner refuses to let him pay for the fish, stating that he's a friend of Enzo's. Despite Robert's insistence, the owner does not accept payment. Meanwhile, acting on Robert's tip-off, a team of CIA agents, among them Emma, who had taken his call, uncovers hidden drugs within the bottles and millions in cash stored in the vineyard's basement. What proves most alarming is that this operation had never been on their radar before. Motivated by this discovery, they continue their investigation. Vincent instructs his brother to intensify pressure on Altamont. With ambitious visions of hotels, casinos, and resorts, Vincent's grand scheme involves evicting local residents to take control of the entire Sicilian coast. As Robert finally recovers and gets ready to leave, having grown fond of the town, an urgent alarm spreads among the residents. A fire has broken out. The fish stand, the owner's livelihood, is engulfed in flames. The owner watches in despair as all his life's work burns before his eyes. Robert turns around and sees the biker gang, laughing. Gio reviews the footage and requests more information on the van that is responsible for the arson. After lending a hand to clear the debris from the fish stand, Robert finds solace in a cup of tea at his favorite cafe. There, he bonds more deeply with the cafe's owner, Amina, who, after the cafe closes for the day, introduces him to the authentic side of Italian cuisine and community. Despite the town's small size, its residents are remarkably welcoming and supportive, looking out for one another. Thanks to the collective effort, the fish stand is nearly restored to its former state. The townspeople have come to regard Robert as one of their own, embracing him into their close-knit community. While savoring his tea at Amina's cafe, Robert spots Emma, who has managed to track him down. She inquires about how he came to possess such accurate information regarding the winery's illicit activities. Although Robert remains evasive in his responses, a part of him wishes to share the entire story with her, yet he feels constrained from doing so. Emma probes further, hinting at the intrigue of how she was able to find him. In response, Robert outlines the entire situation, signaling to her that he's not someone to be underestimated. However, as Emma walks away, she calls out his name, leaving Robert pleasantly surprised. Meanwhile, Gio is alarmed by an unexpected call informing him that his daughter left school early. The teacher says an officer had picked her up. He immediately rushes home, only to find a dire situation awaiting him. Marco, alongside his goons, has taken Gio's wife and daughter hostage. This is retaliation for Gio's efforts to gather information about the arson. Marco proceeds to attack Gio, forcing his family to watch the violent encounter. After the assault, Marco issues a chilling threat to Gio, warning him of dire consequences for his family should he meddle in their affairs again. After the beatdown, he recovers at Enzo's place and Robert witnesses the horrendous sight. Enzo explains that the Camorra Mafia is like cancer and there is no cure. They have to live with it. During his jog, Robert is unexpectedly confronted by Emma at the church. Their investigation into Robert has yielded no tangible results. He's a ghost in their system. Consequently, Robert is no longer considered a suspect in Lorenzo's death, at least for the moment. Lorenzo, a figure who spent a decade on Interpol's most wanted list, was known for operating a vast cyber empire. Recognizing Emma's inexperience, Robert decides to assist her by providing additional tips. He poses a thought-provoking question: why would Lorenzo risk smuggling drugs through the region's most secure port? Emma is aware that Robert specifically chose to approach her with this information. She's puzzled as to why though. As Robert is enjoying his evening, Marco and his henchmen enter, seeking to pressure Gio into persuading the Somalians to lend them their boats. Gio remains silent, visibly frightened for the safety of his family. Amidst this tense atmosphere, Robert fixes an ominous stare on Marco, who eventually confronts him. Marco accuses Robert of meddling in others' affairs, to which Robert retorts that Marco's actions make it challenging not to meddle. Robert expresses a belief in the significance of timing in life, pointedly remarking that Marco's timing is particularly unfortunate. He issues a warning to Marco, advising him to leave the town alone or face consequences. Marco initially finds Robert's challenge funny, but his amusement fades as Robert twists his arm, escalating the pain. Marco instructs his men to leave and places his gun on the table. Then he's also free to go. Marco says to prepare the van. He plans to execute this meddling American. As Marco seeks a gun from one of his men, that man is unexpectedly run over, and the driver of the vehicle is found dead. Armed with nothing more than a bottle, Robert manages to incapacitate a third goon, leaving Marco isolated and armed only with a knife. Robert overpowers Marco, breaking his arm. He then forces Marco into a position where Marco inadvertently causes his own demise, all while under Robert's intense gaze. In the morning, police find drugs in the van and Gio has an idea who's responsible for the charade. In Rome, a devastating bombing has occurred. Emma receives a call from her partner, revealing that Syrian nationals are implicated in the attack. This revelation ties back to the drug money, suggesting it's being used to fund these activities. Emma recalls the tip from Robert, convinced that the key to unraveling this plot lies in Naples and plans to question local dealers. Emma visits the chief of police of Naples and gives him people she wants to question, to which he throws one name out, telling her he can't allow her to do that. But that's exactly the opposite of what she does. She gives the inmate an opportunity for information. He spills the beans to one of their base locations and the Italian SWAT team takes control over it. While Vincent grieves his brother's death, the police chief informs him of the CIA's involvement and advises stopping his operations, warning that Emma might uncover the Camorra is involved in buying drugs from the bombers for the sake of a prosperous business. Vincent, indifferent, vows to handle Emma himself and demands the chief find his brother's killer. After the chief insults him, Vincent responds by severing the chief's right hand, making clear the consequences of defiance. As Emma is on her way to meet Chief, Robert calls her, saying that it's not the bombers she should be looking for, but the Camorra. Just as she hangs up, her car blows up and she barely survives. She is immediately taken to hospital, where she relays the information about Camorra to her partner. Meanwhile, Vincent made his way to Altamont. Throwing Gio on his knees, he gathers the rest of the residents up, to find out who killed his brother. He threatens to kill Gio's family in front of him if he doesn't confess. Having witnessed enough suffering, Robert admits to doing it. He lowers his guns and surrenders himself to his fate. But Enzo comes in to defend Robert and the rest of the people start recording it. And as the sirens sound in the distance, Vincent backs off for now, but he will be back and Robert whispers that it will happen sooner than he thinks. Later in their HQ, the Mafia has no information on Robert, but Vincent still swears to kill him and burn Altamont to the ground. They will set out tomorrow. While Vincent is sleeping, Robert starts quietly dealing with his guards outside. The ones inside get just head tapped one by one with a silencer. The one responsible for cameras? Dead. Robert cleaned up like 15 guys without making any noise. Vincent wakes up from a droplet of blood and a body breaks through the glass. Vincent signals for his men to be alert, but everyone is already removed. He tries to check if the guys, that literally aren't breathing, are alive. That's how desperate he is. Vincent loses it and starts spraying his submachine gun, but Robert just knocks him out and feeds him pills. Once Vincent awakens, he swears that his men will hunt him down. Robert unties him and just menacingly stares as Vincent tries to get away. As he runs outside and through the gate, Vincent still quietly just follows him, until Vincent's heart gives out and it concludes his mission. As Emma watches the fall of the Kimura family and the ceasing of bombing, Robert visits her. He explains that in this bag, there's $366,400 cash. He was at that vineyard to retrieve it. The money was hacked 9 months ago from Greg's pension fund with one stroke of a key. He tracked down a whole mafia for that. The keys Lorenzo had was the room with millions of dollars, bearer bonds and account codes, and all he took is $300K for some guy's pension. Robert says she'll understand as he leaves the bag with Emma. Emma then finds Greg and hands him over the money, and he and his wife break down. It's a miracle. In her office, Emma receives a black book of government contacts from Robert, saying your mother would be proud of you. Emma is the daughter of Robert's former CIA colleagues. Robert is enjoying himself at a cafe in Altamont during a local celebration. He's happy and no longer needs to rely on violence. He found his peace. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this.